The difference between emotional support animal and service dogs. Part 1. Tasks. Tasks are actions, responses, alerts, something the dog is trained to do to help the individual's disability, to mitigate it. Mitigate means decrease the effects of the disability on the person's ability to live everyday life, do everyday activities. Okay. Emotional support legally is not recognized as a task because emotional support is provided just by the animal's presence. Okay? So if the government was to recognize emotional support as a task, you could argue that every pet is an emotional support animal. So that is one of the main differences. Please stay tuned for part 2. Part 2 of the difference between emotional support animal and service animal. So the second biggest difference is training. Service animals are required by law to be under control at all times and can only be in public when they are actively working, okay? That doesn't mean they are tasking 24/7, but that means that they are with their handler for the sole purpose of tasking if they need to. Emotional support animals are not legally required to be trained. They don't even have to be potty trained. However, legitimate ESA owners are responsible for their animals, and they go to a certain length to have a well-behaved animal. And we'll go more into that in another video. But one is required to be highly trained, one is not required at all. Stay tuned for part 3. Difference between emotional support animals and service animals. Part 3. This is the third biggest difference between the two, although there are other minor differences between them, and that is service animals under the Americans with Disability Act, so federal law, can only be dogs and miniature horses. Although state laws can add to that and expand it, they can't take it away. They can't override federal law. Emotional support animals can technically be any animal within reason. A lot of people like to push that boundary. Usually it's a cat or a dog, and occasionally maybe a small animal like a rabbit or a hamster. But technically, according to how the law is written currently, it can be any animal within reason. And actually, I'm going to do a part 4 that covers the differences in rights, so stay tuned for that. Part 4 of the differences between emotional support animals and service animals. And that would be their legal rights. The Americans with Disabilities Act grants public access to service dogs only. Fully trained service animals, either dogs or horses. They actually specifically exclude emotional support animals because of the lack of required training and the fact that they don't know tasks, or supposedly in this case, talking legally. ESAs are currently still protected under the Fair Housing Act and the Air Carrier Access Act, which means they have the right to live with their handler in non-pet friendly housing as a reasonable accommodation and fly with the handler in the cabin of a plane without extra fees, but that's about to change. That brings this small series to an end, but I will continue to educate about service animals and emotional support animals in the future. Do you have an ESA? Are they super duper great? Does their presence bring you joy and help balance your mental state? They are underestimated and people need to stop, 'cause they are important and they have a big job. Hi, so you've seen this dog behind me in some of my posts, and you know that I'm very pro ESA. First of all, I'd like to let you know that this is my sister's ESA and that both of us are completely aware of the laws and rules that are applicable to ESAs. I'm a very pro-ESA advocate who strives to spread correct information. I'm also a service dog handler, so I understand where everyone is coming from. If you support ESAs, please do not feel the need to put that comment of, "Remember, you can't go into public." Legitimate, responsible ESA owners does not need everyone reminding them what they can and can't do. It can come off as service dogs are better than you in every way kind of attitude, and it's just not needed. If someone needs educated, do it, but not everybody does, and it's just a PSA. Q&A Part 3, ESAs. Why am I so supportive of ESAs? Well, I think it's bigger than American entitlement. In fact, I think American entitlement is what's ruining ESAs. If our government had the wherewithal to write something as vague but helpful as an ESA into our laws, that means they are recognizing that mental health matters. ESAs are tools to help treat mental illness and mental health. I think they are very important, and we need to spread correct information. Why would someone label an ESA if they don't have public access? It's really personal preference. Nobody has a monopoly on gear and labeling. As long as the animal is not being misrepresented or taken where it's not supposed to go, it's fine. My sister labels her ESA because they are actively training and she doesn't want people to pet them when they're in pet-friendly places. Another reason would be if they're flying. What exactly is an ESA? Well, if you didn't know, ESA stands for Emotional Support Animal. These are animals specially recommended and implemented by mental health professionals to help manage or treat mental health or mental illness. An ESA can be any species within reason, but for an animal to be an ESA, you have to have an updated letter from your mental health professional describing how the ESA helps you and that it is a tool in your treatment. There are no certifications or registries that hold any legal authority for ESAs in the United States. ESAs are specifically excluded from the ADA because comfort is not a task. They are not service dogs, therefore they do not have public access rights. They can obviously go into pet-friendly places, they can be added as an accommodation in non-pet-friendly housing, and as of right now they can fly in the cabin of a plane with their owner without extra fees. However, that is the extent of their legal rights. They are still valid, though. Hi guys, I have a quick something to say about this. I don't know this person or their situation, I could be totally wrong, but I still think it's important to voice this. If you're not getting an ESA because you have a mental something that needs that extra support, and you're just making a pet an ESA for the privileges that come with it, that is irresponsible, unethical, and it totally disregards why they exist in the first place. They have those privileges because they help the people in a tremendous way, okay? And people who are using the system just for those privileges are going to literally create a society in our nation without ESAs. It's going to be taken away. You can disagree with me, put it in the comments, but that's my perspective. Do you struggle to function due to psychiatric disabilities or diagnoses? Are you trying to figure out if an emotional support animal or a psychiatric service dog would be better for you? Here are some things to consider. A big question to ask yourself is, can you function in public? That plays a big role in determining which type of animal would be better for you. This is important because emotional support animals are for support at home. They have a couple of special privileges, but if you can function in public, but you need help at home, maybe an ESA is right for you. Now, if you need help functioning in public with daily activities, then maybe a psychiatric service dog is what you need. They are task trained. They do specific tasks to alleviate your symptoms of your disabilities. However, there is one big thing to consider. What triggers your anxiety or PTSD or those psychiatric episodes? Because if you get a service dog, public interactions are going to go way up, and that could make your anxiety worse. So to address this in depth and to give you a better idea, we're going to start with the definition of a disability that is protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the ADA is what defines and protects service dogs. It's also what defines the legal term for disabled and protects disabled individuals in America. Pause here to read the definition of a disability according to the ADA. So when it comes to limiting one or more daily life activities, they're talking about functioning in public, being able to go to work or school, being able to run errands, go grocery shopping, doctor's appointments. Are you limited in your daily activities because of your disabilities? So with psychiatric disabilities, this might look like not leaving the house because of agoraphobia, not going to the grocery store because you can't make it through without having an anxiety attack, not being able to lead a normal life because of the symptoms of your disabilities. That's when to consider a psychiatric service dog over an emotional support animal.